Well, I think it's probably has more to do with a little bit of a reset of an agenda that he hoped was going to be a lot more successful at the beginning of this year. I think Mark's exactly right, that he's going to focus entirely on jobs, entirely on the economy, because that is the number one anxiety that the American public has. And I think what we've seen over the last year has been this sort of disconnect between Washington's priorities, the Democrats and President Obama, and the American public's priorities. They see a Washington kind of focused on only on health care. They see them focused on bailouts, and they're spending a lot of money. And they see that is a sort of disconnect from what they want to see every single day, which is they just simply want to see the economy get started again. And they don't think that the priorities that Washington has had have been capable at addressing that.
What could he say that would make Republicans want to work with him? Anything?
Tax relief. I think there's going to be uniform agreement around anytime the president talks about tax relief. Anytime he talks about targeting some of his economic initiatives at small business. Right now, Republicans see a great opportunity, and that is to align ourselves with this populist anger right now, but also align ourselves with the middle class and Main Street. President Obama and the Democrats right now have lost independence, and they've lost the middle class right now because what they see is a dysfunctional Washington spending too much money on the wrong things and not focused on Main Street and job creation.
So, Lara, foreign affairs. I mean, you just last night did the long takeout on terrorism, and we know that this is a big issue, but we don't hear too much about it from the White House. What do you think the president needs or is likely to say about that?
Well, I spoke to his top advisor on counterterrorism just recently, and the big issues are homegrown terrorism is on the rise, an increase in domestic terror plots, the fact that more and more Americans, citizens, are being recruited into al-Qaeda, and this is what some experts call the blonde-haired, blue-eyed brigade. It's not just Americans of Islamic or Arabic descent. It's all kinds of Americans. And what makes it so difficult for the intelligence community and law enforcement is that the only thing any of these people have in common, the one common denominator and the only common denominator, is that they're Muslim. Otherwise, everything varies. So there's a real sense as well that in spite of what some people say about al-Qaeda being on the ropes and all the rest of it, the evidence is to the contrary. In fact, al-Qaeda has offices, if you like, all over the world right now. And they're showing that they can reach out and touch America from places as remote and austere as Yemen, for example. So, I mean, there's definitely a sense that terrorism is on the increase, and the White House needs to show a strong hand in dealing with that. And this administration has not been shy about that issue. President Obama has authorized, more drone strikes on both sides of the border in Afghanistan and Pakistan than the previous administration did in its entire, last term.
And we seem to have all but gone to war in Yemen.
Well, you know how these things work.
Okay, there are a couple of issues, Mark, that I'd like to get back to you on. I mean, for instance, the president will talk about some other things, we know that, but give me, if you can, a good, a little bit of cocktail party chatter about some of the interesting stuff. You've seen, as have I, a whole lot of these State of the Union messages, and I just wonder, give us a couple of facts that nobody really knows.
Well, tonight is the third time President Obama has addressed a joint session of Congress. It's his first speech, State of the Union speech, but you may remember, or you may not, that last February he addressed a joint session discussing his economic goals for the year, a month after he took office. And then in September, he gave a speech on health care reform. Clearly, it didn't do much because he wasn't able to get his plan enacted. In addition, this will be the 181st State of the Union address that has been given. Now,
makes you wonder why they bother, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly does. Can you remember a line from a recent State of the Union address? I really can't myself, and you and I cover these for a living. Most of these speeches over history were given just a written report sent to Congress. Nothing in the Constitution says the president must appear in person in order to deliver his speech. Over history, only 81 times has an American president gone to Congress and given these speeches in person, and it really began in earnest with President Woodrow Wilson.
Any predictions about how this will come out tonight?
Predictions? Well, I hear it's going to be very long. So my prediction is that President Obama is going to be very successful at running out the clock so that maybe less people hear Governor McDonnell.
How about you, Mark? Any predictions?
You know when we'll know if this works? On the day after the November 2nd elections. We'll see whether Democrats are still in control of Congress and by how much.
Well, here's a safe prediction for you. One thing I know from having met him and interviewed him is that he is very sincere about what he's trying to do. So there will be a lot of heartfelt kind of, Obama putting himself into that speech.
All right, Lara, Kevin, and Mark, thank you very much. We look forward to holding you accountable for whatever you said after the speech. And right now, we're joined from across the Potomac in Arlington by John Harris, the editor-in-chief of Politico, to talk about the importance of tonight's speech for both the president and his party. Hey, John.
How are you? Good evening.
Great. Big stakes here tonight, huh?
Well, these are always big occasions for the president, but I think they're bigger for Obama right now because he clearly needs, in some way, to set the reset button on his presidency and on the sort of drift of recent events. And a speech like this before, even in this age of fragmented media, States of Union addresses get huge audiences. It's one of the handful of occasions the president gets annually to speak to a great unified national audience. So there are tremendous opportunities.
All right. Well, John Harris of Politico, thank you very much. We're watching the monitor here. We see the doors to the diplomatic entrance of the White House wide open. The president about to come out and head for Capitol Hill.
Any minute now.
Any
It'll be
minute.
a big night.
So thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Callie, those are our pregame predictions from here, such as they are. So back to you in New York.